This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
Well, if you think about it, we are going to be in retirement for 20 plus, or more years. So we're going to need to have that growth on our money. The question that we get all the time is, well, how much? And do I need to beat the stock market? How does all that work? Well, wealth advisor Larry Sprung, he recently talked to Yahoo Finance and said there actually are other factors that you need to consider.
It's not really what the return is. It's really what do I get to keep when all's said and done? And if your return is, 5%, you then have to take off inflation. You then have to take off what you owe in terms of taxes and see what you're really left with when all's said and done. And if that's a number that you can live with, then that might be an investment that works for you. If it's not, you might have to look elsewhere.
All right. So break this down for me, Mark. How does this work? What is the average return rate that your clients need to have that successful retirement?
Well, I really like this guy and what he said, because I think a very wise statement there on his part. It's really not about the rate of return. I mean, that's secondary. Again, we got to find the destination we want to get to. Sometimes what people need to accomplish, they're not willing to experience. We need to get a high rate of return. Sometimes that requires more aggressive investments and the people are able to stomach. And so we really have to think differently. And he's absolutely correct that we got to look at considerations like inflation and taxes. And, it's not what you earn in the market or what you've earned at your job per se. It's what you get to keep at the end of the day. And so that is not a single answer. We can't say what is the specific rate of return for everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We got to look at the individual portfolios. I mean, at the end of the day, it really has to do with the building blocks that our clients have accumulated over the years. Sometimes we have people come to us, they're referred in, and maybe they have $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000, and they want me to magically show them how to make that sustain over a 20, 30-year time horizon. And I can't do that. I don't have a magic wand. I mean, you certainly, we can get your returns on that. We can get you safety on it, but 10, 20, 30,000 is not going to carry you for 20, 30 years. And so we've got to look at the entirety of a person's situation and their expectations. And sometimes that means reframing their expectations regarding rates of return, as well as what may be possible for them. Fortunately, the people who come to my classes, my educational events, often they're well prepared. For them to commit 6 hours to an educational experience, they're serious. And so generally those people are better prepared. And my conversation flips. It's not about how do we think smaller. It's about how do we think bigger? How do we live up to our privileges? Because, for example, I had a couple come in last night. We had a great conversation. They've been clients about 5 years, and they've decided to move from Las Vegas out to Arkansas, up into the hill country. He's a real outdoorsman, likes to hunt and fish. And I was able to share some ideas with him about how to finance, how to acquire the barn dominium that they're going to be building out there, how to do all of that differently and free up a significant amount of money that can literally transform their retirement expectations in terms of what's possible. So it's not just a little boat. It might be a bigger boat, back there in the lake country. Those are the kind of conversations we have. We're really not fixated on a specific rate of return. It's how do we look at the entirety of their financial situation and really what assets do they have? Because many people don't include all of their known assets, such as in this couple's case, home equity and how we can maximize that. So it's a big picture and it requires a big conversation. And in fact, a series of conversations. And that's why we invite people in. Come have this free, visit with us and see if we're a good fit for you and coaching you. Because that's really what we're doing is we're giving people a perspective about things that most people on the street are not aware of. There's a fair bit that I've learned in, reading a few hours a day for 30 years. There's hundreds of thousands of hours, frankly, that's been spent learning. And from that, we're able to help people get an outside perspective, what's realistic, and then go write their story.
Now, this is just kind of a fun, interesting little list that I found online. Mark, it revealed the first jobs of some very famous world leaders. Our new president here, Donald Trump, he once picked up empty bottles from his father's construction sites to redeem cash. Okay, I can't picture him doing that, but I guess he did at some point. Barack Obama, he scooped up ice cream at a Baskin-Robbins in Chicago. I can see that. Mr. Joe Biden did maintenance at a school that he attended so he could pay for the fees. Interesting. And then you have Pope Francis. This is going to blow you out of the water here. Pope Francis again, the guy, the white outfit,
Yeah.
the whole thing. Nightclub bouncer in his
Whoa.
hometown of
Didn't
Buenos
see that
Aires.
coming.
Oh my gosh, that one made me laugh. Oh, Pope Francis, some skeletons in the closet there. So it got me thinking about first jobs and how we get to where we are. And, what was your first job, Mark? How did it lead you on the road to becoming a financial advisor?
Oh my gosh. I've always been working. My parents were such that they taught us that, if you want things in life, you need to be able to pay for them. And so, quite honestly, I was out peddling things door to door, and I'm sure I just made the neighbors giggle because I was 5 years old and I was making little ashtrays out of sandstone, in Germany. I'd go get this sandstone out of the forest and I'd rub them together and create little ashtray shaped things, and I'd go sell them for $0.10 a door, because back then I could go to the movies on the base for 25 cents. So my heavens, it was annoying the neighbors early on with little sales offerings or whatever I could find in the playground. And then from there I went to paper routes and bagging groceries in high school, all sorts of those things. I spent most of my time in college as a research assistant and a teaching assistant. So I taught classes about political science and economics and history. And I actually was involved in the creation of a course as the research assistant on pop culture, of all things.
Oh, wow.
So it had kind of a varied background there. But from it all, I went into with the expectation of going to law school. Did really well academically and got accepted to law school and thought that was the route to go, because what else do you do if you're straight A's, in liberal arts? And I had an epiphany that really wasn't right for me. So I walked away from that and discovered the retirement planning industry. And what a blessing that's been for me, because it's allowed creativity and it allowed me to serve, which was very important to me. I was also a missionary during my college years, and my father was a chaplain. And so this service mentality was ingrained in us. And the financial service industry, I discovered by doing door-to-door sales while in college, I kept meeting these financial service people. I didn't know anything about this industry, but they were the most positive people that I had ever met. And I thought, I want to be like these people. So I wanted to learn more about them. And one thing led to another. And I learned about this career opportunity and how I could combine service with this planning element where we can help people maintain their dignity in their later years of life. And it was attractive enough to make me walk away from my acceptance to law school. And I haven't looked back. It's been 30 something years now, 33 or 4 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time, over 3 decades. So you're clearly passionate about what you do. You're a people person. You love educating yourself. You love educating others. We've talked about it before. I think if this didn't work out, you would have been a teacher in some form or fashion.
Oh, yeah.
And, you really carry that into your conversations with our listeners and even your current clients, and really make it easy, simple, and fun to understand our retirement plan. And, I know a lot of folks listen and they go, all right, this guy's educated. He seems to have all the tools, but at the end of the day, why does he care if I have a successful retirement? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's loaded, and I may say things that would sound strange to people, but I have a real long-term perspective. I think, when I pass out of this life, I'm going to meet people again on the other side, and I don't want to blush. I want them to look at me with gratitude and me to look at them as friends. And so that's how we frame our business, is that we want to be of service where we can materially improve people's lives. We can strengthen their families through the tools that we're bringing to them. I mean, a big part of what we do is encouraging people to have family meetings and to connect about these end-of-life issues. How are we going to care for ourselves as we get older and all this? And so for me, that's incredibly satisfying, because it goes far, far beyond just crunching numbers. I mean, crunching numbers is part of our work, but that's really not what we're doing. We're really designing people's future and helping assure that they have dignity. And at the end of the day, that's incredibly satisfying. I've literally had widows get quite emotional with me as they realized how well prepared they were for that shock of suddenly being on their own. They were going to be fine. I've had men literally within days of dying call me to their sick bed and thank me for, gosh, I get emotional thinking about this. Thank me because we got things in order for the spouse. I'm meeting with another widow next week of a friend he was 63, I think, 62, 63, who passed unexpectedly here on New Year's Eve. And now his widow's coming in, and we're going to talk about they're well prepared. But there's some things we got to communicate, and how does she plan forward? All those things are incredibly satisfying because it's about life. It's not about money. It's about life. And hopefully life isn't about money. Money is just fuel. It's just what we need to get us to our chosen destination. So I love what I do. And yeah, long answer to a short question there. Sorry.
The word annuity, it often gets a bad rap in the financial world. And usually it's because there's critics out there, and they tend to group all types of annuities under one umbrella. But if you're a listener to the show, we've talked about it before, this is not the case. So really, Mark, for someone who's new and maybe just needs more education here, let's talk about what an annuity is, and then let's air it all out. Let's talk about the benefits and the drawbacks.
Boy, I welcome this. I had a conversation yesterday with a man who was raised in Havana, Cuba, under that system. And he came in specifically to talk about this. We had prior conversations, but it's a foreign product was how he described it. He said, he's quite well educated. He's self-educated, but he understands financial products, but this was a totally new animal for him. And so we talked about it and its origins. I mean, it's such a strange term, annuity, that most people don't know what it means. And, if we remember from our first year Latin classes, annos is the Latin term for year. And the origins of an annuity is the idea that the Roman Empire paid the legionnaires an annual stipend once they retired, so that they had an annual payment to carry them into their older years. Well, that is the origin 2,000 years ago of this idea of a stipend, a payment that would come out monthly or annually to keep us going. And so we see it through history. I mean, Jane Austen, in a number of her books, writes about the wonder of an annuity, and Mr. Darcy and all. Part of the attractiveness is he's got this annual income for life. And so at its core, an annuity is now basically just a tax advantage savings account from an insurance company. And it comes in two forms, frankly. One is for growth. The other is for income. So the income is really income that you can't outlive. It's effectively a private pension. It's a payment that you can choose at an immediate date or at some future date to turn on a stream of income that you and your spouse, even both of you, can never outlive. And that's incredibly attractive for a lot of people. I own 6 annuities, and it has to do with the fact that my wife doesn't engage a lot with things financially, and I don't want her to have to. We have a child with disabilities. That's really where her focus needs to be. So when I'm dead and gone, all she has to do is turn on the switch, and a play check replaces my old paychecks. And that play check gets deposited in her account electronically every month for the rest of her life. She doesn't have to think about it. She's got income for life. So that's the key feature that attracts people to annuities. And so when you hear all these critics out there, they're talking about fees and different things that, frankly, they don't well understand. And they're trying to compare it to investments like mutual funds, which annuities are not. They're simply not that. They're a retirement product. They're not an investment product. And so it's kind of like criticizing a boat for not being a plane. I always say that they were designed for two different things. And an annuity is as broad a term as automobile. We all know when we look out the window that there's sedans, there's pickups, there's vans, there's all sorts of vehicles, and each was designed for different reasons. Same thing with annuities. There are just a gazillion different types of annuities, 2,000 life insurance companies offering these. And so some are designed just to safely grow your money. Some are designed to create income you can't outlive. Some have optional features where it'll give you a leveraged or increased amount if you need it for long-term care. Or like we set up a case for my dad. My dad sold a home, and he wanted that money earmarked for his children, his other money for his new wife. He remarried after my mom died. But what we did for him was an annuity that had a rider that guaranteed him a growth rate. I think that account was like 6% growth rate, contractually guaranteed until the day he dies. And so he knew that this money he had earmarked for his children would be divided among his children, but it would also grow at a contractually guaranteed rate. And so contractually guaranteed is the other term that people need to recognize. When we deal with insurance companies, these are effectively performance contracts. And so you get certain assurances based on the strength of the insurance company. So most of the critics are looking at features, and they're either distorting it, misrepresenting it because they're selling something else. That's the biggest problem. Or what they're doing is they're taking a one-size-fits-all approach. They're saying annuities are bad because they have fees. Well, most annuities have absolutely zero fees. There is one type of an annuity, a variable annuity, that tends to have layers of fees, and they can be expensive. We do very little of those. But that's typically what people are criticizing, and then it's kind of a broad brush. So I always say, if you like Social Security, the idea of income you can't outlive, if we look at the features of an annuity, I've rarely met anyone who doesn't embrace the benefits of what an annuity provides. What they have a hard time with is the name, and that's just because of the critics' misinformation and marketing against them.
Mark, we have talked before about how, folks get busy during the 9 to 5, right? We're doing a million different things. We barely have time to go to the grocery store. So the fact of meeting with somebody like yourself, talking about our finances, while it might be somewhere in our brain, sometimes we don't get to it. I know there's a lot of talk of, hey, let's do this end of year plan, or hey, let's start off the new year with a new plan. Well, what if we didn't get to one of those two circumstances? Is there a better time than others to meet with somebody like yourself?
Well, I don't think there's any magic time. I mean, sooner than later is always better. I mean, once a relationship is established, we like meeting with our clients at the end in the fourth quarter of the year and in the first quarter of the year, because that's when people are kind of naturally reevaluating their lives, where they're at, where they want to go. But Stephen Covey, the great management consultant, he used to give this example of a person going through the jungle bush, as it were, and they're whacking away with the machete, and their head is deep in the grass. And unless they occasionally climb up the palm tree, as it were, and look forward, they can easily get lost or start going in circles, because we're in our day-to-day life, we're so deep in the tall grass that we can lose perspective. And so in my personal life and in my business here with my team, I think it's very important that we retreat occasionally. I've tried to do this with my wife on a quarterly basis. We have not always succeeded, but it's this idea of we're going to remove ourselves from our day-to-day, and we're going to have a day or two or three where we decompress in a different environment, and we talk about what's important in our lives. Are we on the path that we thought we were on? And do we still want to be on that path, or do we want to get on a different path? I think everyone needs to do this in every aspect of their life, certainly financially, but in every other practical way, spiritually and otherwise. We need to reevaluate where we're at versus where we want to be. And so I would say, if you haven't done this, come visit with us. Let's talk about your future. How do you want your story to play out over the remainder of your life? Because we're really doing life planning more than we are retirement planning, per se. I hate the word retirement because it suggests that we're retreating from life and from any engagement in physical or mental or social activity. It should be quite the opposite. It should be more of a refiring rather than a retiring. We should be reigniting, as it were, the passion that we have for whatever direction we want to go, whatever experiences we want to have. So I love your question. When's the best time to meet? Well, yesterday. The second best time is today.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts' principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.